I think we all know the pain of waiting for a client to deliver the text for the website we are designing and building. Some people wait at the beginning before they even start designing, and then they get a Word document and they start from there. Some people design with fake lorem ipsum text, then go through the whole building process and then ask the client to fill out the text. But no matter what method you choose, the client always struggles with copywriting, and that makes sense. They have their business, they're good at one thing. Copywriting is a marketing skill. But we as web designers also don't have the skill, and so that's why many people ask the client to do it. But now we have AI, right? So we or our client can then go in and generate these texts. But then at what moment do you do that? Do you do that when you're in Figma designing or when everything is already set up in development? And both of these options are also not great because then you have to copy and paste everything to ChatGPT and ChatGPT doesn't have the right context and so the output is kind of lame. And so it is much better to do that early in the process. And so in this video, I want to show you where you can implement AI to help you with generating the copy so that this is not a roadblock for you, for us, and for the client. And this is huge because if you don't finish your project, then you also don't really want to send that last invoice because the project is never done. The whole thing becomes heavy. You need to chase your clients. It sucks away your energy. So let's solve this issue once and for all. In order to understand the solution well, we first need to understand the problem. And so I visualized the typical web designer into three kind of buckets, and you probably fall into one of these three. Let's start with the beginner level. A beginner gets an email from their client, maybe they will do a discovery call if they are a little bit more pro, and then they jump straight into the page builder. They don't really have a plan, they are excited though because they have a new client, but they don't really know what to design, so they start copying templates. The whole design process is kind of chaotic, but it feels like things are going fast. And then the feedback moment comes, and the client is not really happy yet. They're a little bit annoyed because why is the client not happy with my amazing work? And so feedback comes, they make some changes, there's more feedback, and they probably get stuck in this loop of feedback because there was not really a plan to begin with. But let's say that you get to a point where both parties are ready, then you have to wait for the content, right? Because you're just doing the design and development here, there's no content yet, but then the client also doesn't really know how to write content, so it takes a long time and sometimes doesn't even arrive. You have to chase the client in order to finish the project. A pretty painful process if you ask me. I also started here. Then after some years, you become a little bit more pro, right? You know for sure that you really need to have a call with your client. So you plan the discovery call, you make a few notes, and you have learned from this process, right? You need a good starting point. And so you ask your client to deliver a document that has certain elements in them. So something about their company, the services they offer, and then you just wait. Maybe this client is using AI, maybe not. And if they do, they're probably just chatting with ChatGPT. So the output is not really great. It takes them a long time. But at some point you get that document and then you can get started. You open your Figma, you start designing with that content document on the side. But it's quite hard to convert all of that text from that Word document, because it's often a lot, into sections. But you do your best, you create these blocks, and then at some point you get to a design and you can ask feedback to your client. But this design process often creates designs that literally look like Word documents. So the websites often have like a lot of text and then image left and right. It's just kind of boring, and that's because they started with that big document and they try to force all of that text into sections. Then they develop it, then they finish it. So I think that this process is better than the first one because you do start out with content which is better. Okay, so then you have the professional level. What does the professional do differently? Well, you also do a discovery call, you make notes, maybe even you're using a transcription now, so you also have the transcript, but you've learned from this pain over here with these sections, right? So you're first gonna make a sitemap, which is just what kind of pages does this website actually need, and then what kind of sections do we need? You understand that form should follow function. So you create some kind of sitemap where it's clear what sections belong to what page, something like this. And this is a lot better. Your client feels a lot more guided. So you have that meeting, you show them the plan, but clients will find it often hard to visualize this step. This is my experience. We are designers, we can kind of see it already in front of our eyes, but for clients it's really hard, but they do understand this, so it definitely helps to avoid a lot of mistakes later on. Then you go into Figma, you make your design, you apply design feedback, which is less than on the intermediate level because the client is more guided. He knows what's going to happen, what kind of sections he's going to see. Then you turn to development, you build it. The building experience is nice because the design is well prepared. But then you still have to wait for content because the only thing you did over here was decide the pages and the sections, but the text itself is not here. So then you can maybe use AI, or your client can use AI, but then what are you going to do? Let's say that you have a design like this. Are you then going to ask ChatGPT to write this little text and then this little text, and then there's a lot of copy and pasting going on? That's also not a nice workflow, and that's the same in your page builder. And so you do get to the finish line, but this is still a painful process. And so my conclusion for all of these three workflows is, in all scenarios, we are too focused on the design and development, but the client still isn't skilled enough to complete the copywriting part properly. And therefore, there are delays in all three workflows. Okay, so now that we understand the problem, let's scroll to the solution. This is a workflow that solves the problem. And the first big difference you see right here is that we're starting out with a lot more data. So instead of just having the discovery call with your notes and the transcripts, we're also gonna do some competitor research. I think it's always a good idea to also ask for the competitors in your discovery call because your client knows their direct competitors. But I also always go on Google myself and I search for similar businesses, preferably in the same area, to see what kind of websites their competitors have. I just make some notes on the things that I see. Then you can also use AI to do deep research on the audience. So on the potential customer that your client is trying to reach. So one of the questions in your discovery call should always be, what is the ideal customer you want to attract? And if you know that, then you can use the deep research feature and ask it, what are the common problems of this group of people and how have they tried to solve it? And that information is incredibly important for the copywriting because copywriting is often playing with pain and solution. And then you can also do keyword research. And Gemini is really good at that because Gemini is the AI of Google. And so you can make some kind of prompt that would generate a whole bunch of keywords for this business. And so see what we're doing right here. We're having a lot more data than just the discovery call and the answers from our client. We're also looking for information outside of that call because you cannot always trust your clients, and not because they're lying to you, but simply because it's very hard to look objectively at your own business. And as we all know, the output of AI is only as good as its input. I have some notes right here on what you should ask in the discovery call. You should ask about the main goals and ask why that is their goal, because often the first answer is not the actual answer. Then the ideal customer, like I told you, direct competitors, the tone of voice of the brand, so how do they want to come off, and a preferred design style if they have one. And so this data is basically inside of the discovery call notes and transcript if you did a good job in the discovery call. Okay, so we have a lot of data, and then we're going to create a project inside of ChatGPT or Claude. It's kind of like a custom GPT, so not a dumb chat that starts out with nothing, but a project that already has instructions. So I'm showing it right here. This is how it looks like in Claude, and this is how it looks like in ChatGPT. It's not a full agent, but it's a much better starting point. So the goal of this project is to get copywriting for the homepage in sections, but we're using all of this data as an input. And I'm always first starting out with the homepage because that's where most of the story is told on most websites. This is not applicable for every single website, not for an e-commerce website, but for most service-based websites, this is very useful. And an important detail here is that we're not just asking for a bunch of text. We're telling it that we want it in a website format, so separated in different sections that make sense for this website. And again, AIs are really good at that. AIs are not perfect, but in the background, they're large language models. So just feeding them a bunch of text actually gets you quite a good result. But hey, we never fully trust AI, and so you give it feedback to make it better. Then after that foundation is strong, then you can ask it for more sections and other pages and to build kind of like that sitemap. That's still a very important step, but you need that good foundation over here. And then you can go to the design. And these days you have two options. If you're already a fan of AI website creation, you can ask Chat or Claude to just generate it right there, or use a tool like Lovable to make a version 1 of the design, or just design it yourself in Figma. You don't have to start from scratch these days. You can have a wireframing template and stuff like that. But there are multiple options here, right? And then once that's ready, you do have the first version of the design, including copy. So your client can actually read and get a real feel for what the website can be. And you should tell your client here that this is a draft that they can edit later, but it's a good enough draft if you did a good job over here. Because again, the output of AI is only as good as its input. Okay, so then you apply feedback, then you go to development, whether you do it handmade in a page builder, or maybe you're also into AI coding. If you're using a tool like Lovable, you don't even have to convert a design into code because it is already code. But this technology is getting better. Right now, most of us still use page builders. And then, of course, you review the development and then you finish. So I hope that you see the power in this workflow compared to letting your client struggle with it. I think this is quite powerful, and I do have to give an absolute huge shout out to my friend Milan, who actually put the seed for this idea in my mind. We did a live stream together, as you can see right here, where he basically showed his process. It looks very similar to this. It's a little bit different, but he put the big idea in my mind, which led to this video. So if you find this super interesting and you want to hear more arguments, then I will put a link to that live stream in the video description, and you can watch that. It's awesome that in this time with AI, the web design process changes a lot. There's so much more possible now, but I think that this is definitely a very responsible way to use AI. Let me know if you enjoyed this video in the comments, leave a like if you liked it, and then I will hopefully see you in the next one.